ito sa Kongreso, maging layunin natin na magkaroon ng public awareness at makadagdag sa kaalaman ng ating kababayan ukol sa disinformasyon. Hinikayat ko po ang lahat ng narito sa ating pagpupulong na sikaping makamit ang layuning ito. Sa inyong lahat, maraming salamat po. The Chair now recognizes Congressman Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Pimentel, you're now recognized.
Good morning to everyone. Today, we gather to address a pressing issue. As we delve into this inquiry, it is essential to underscore the critical implications that misinformation has on public discourse, democratic processes, and societal cohesion. Social media has transformed how we communicate and access information. It provides unprecedented opportunities for dialogue and engagement, allowing voices from all walks of life to be heard. Yet, the same platform has become a fertile ground for the rapid dissemination of falsehoods and misleading narratives. The consequences of such misinformation are profound, influencing everything from public health decisions to electoral outcomes and undermining trust in our institutions and each other. As lawmakers, our role is not only to understand the scope and nature of this phenomenon, but also to consider our responsibility in creating a framework that protects the integrity of information while respecting the fundamental principles of free speech. We must tread carefully, ensuring that our legislative responses do not inadvertently stifle legitimate discourse or infringe upon the rights of individuals. This inquiry seeks to eliminate the dynamics at play between social media, fake news, and the public. We aim to gather insights from experts, stakeholders, and the public at large, examining the efficacy of existing regulations, the accountability of social media platforms, and the potential for new legislative measures to combat misinformation. We must ask ourselves, what constitutes fake news? How can we differentiate between misinformation and legitimate debate? What role should media companies play in monitoring and curbing the spread of false information? And crucially, how can we empower the public to critically engage with information they encounter online? Together, let us strive to find solutions that not only address the challenges posed by fake news, but also foster a vibrant, informed, and responsible digital citizenship. Our discussions today and in the days to come will shape the path forward in this vital area, and I encourage you to contribute your insights and perspectives in this hearing. Thank you and good morning to everyone.
The next to deliver his opening remarks is the Chairman on Committee on Public Information and Communication Technology. Committee on Public Information, chaired by Congressman Chairman Joboy Aquino. Now you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to all of you. Let me thank our colleagues, resource persons, and everyone in attendance today as we try to understand and address the rampant spread of disinformation on social media. In today's digital era, its speed and impact are unprecedented, which compels us to address this head-on. Intentionally misleading information poses significant risk to our society, undermining public trust, threatening public safety, and influencing public opinion. We share a collective responsibility to address this challenge effectively. As I understand, we have representatives from different sectors, and our goal is to strengthen collaboration and explore approaches to counter disinformation. Each of you bring unique expertise and insights. We highly encourage all our resource persons to actively participate in our committee meetings and to exercise their freedom of speech, of expression, and of the press with diligence and integrity. As we engage in meaningful discussions, let us uphold the highest moral and ethical standards, recognizing that all freedoms and rights come with a responsibility to use them wisely. Together, let us foster a respectful and productive dialogue that contributes to inform policy making and the public good. With that in mind, I look forward to a constructive discussion with all of you. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair Joboy Aquino. Now, the Chair would like to recognize one of the authors of House Resolution number 2147, Senior Deputy Speaker Don Gonzales. Now, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Dan, Chairman Johnny, Chairman Joboy, honorable members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good morning to all of us. It is my privilege to sponsor House Resolution number 286, which calls for a joint inquiry in aid of legislation on the rampant posting of false and malicious content on social media platforms, while safeguarding freedom of speech and ensuring digital safety. Social media bridges gaps. Pinag-uugnay nito ang mga tao, bumubuo ito ng mga komunidad, nagpapalawak ng mga kamalayan at nagsusulong ng pagbabahagi ng kaalaman. According to online article by Data Reportal, the Philippines was home to 86.75 million social media users in January 2024. Equating to 73.4% of the total population. At sabi naman ng Foundation for Media Alternatives, ang Facebook ay ang pinakamura at pinakamadaling ma-access dahil ang ilang mga network ay inaalok ito ng libre bilang bahagi ng kanilang data plan. Ngunit, sa kabila ng napakaraming benepisyong kaakibat nito, social media can also be used as a conduit of inappropriate content. We all experience browsing our social media platforms, and more often, we come across racist, sexist, homophobic, religious, and political-based hate contents. Ang mga mapanirang nilalaman na ito ay naglalagay sa panganib sa kaligtasan ng publiko sa pamamagitan ng maling impormasyon, online harassment, mga panlilinlang at iba pang anyo ng cyberbullying. We affirm that instrumental role of social media in today's day and age, but there is an overwhelming need to address harmful content and at the same time uphold constitutional freedoms, particularly the freedom of speech and expression, which are considered cornerstones of our democracy. House Resolution number 286 proposes for the development of an improved transparency and accountability mechanisms for social media platforms. Most especially, it calls for an enhanced content moderation, reporting systems, and safeguards against misuse of algorithms. Additionally, digital literacy needs to be prioritized to help our fellow Filipinos discern credible information. Likewise, the resolution will also review Republic Act number 10175 or the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012 to address the challenges posed by emerging technologies and harmful online content. To effectively address and promote digital safety, a multi-stakeholder approach must be carried out. Social media companies, cybersecurity experts, and legal professionals must come together to craft an effective and double legislation. By working together, we can ensure a safer digital landscape while preserving democratic values. Inihikayat ko po ang aking mga kapwa mambabatas at lahat ng ating mga panauhin na suportahan ang resolution ito upang matiyak ang kaligtasan ng ating digital space. Let us reconfigure our social media platforms with meaningful discourse, innovation, and empowerment rather than a breeding ground for deception of harm. Takal po salamat, may payabak at po kay Katam.
Ano yan?
Good morning to all of you. Takal po salamat. Maraming salamat.
To deliver the next opening remarks, the one who deliver his privilege speeches, two privilege speeches in the plenary on December 4 and 16, 2024. Chairman Robert Ace Barbers, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is very short, Mr. Chairman. As the proponent of the privilege speech that was delivered last year, with respect to the issues in the social media, allow this representation to deliver a very short opening remark, Mr. Chair. Magandang umaga, mga kasamahan, honorable colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We are gathered here today not to silence voices, suppress free speech, or curtail the constitutional right to freedom of expression. Instead, we are here to draw the line between responsible discourse and the deliberate, systematic abuse of digital platforms to spread lies, destroy reputations, and manipulate public perception. This hearing seeks to establish a regulatory framework for social media similar to how the Kapisanan ng mga Broadcasters sa Pilipinas or the KBP regulates television and radio broadcasters, and how the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines or the NUJP upholds ethical standards for print media. Our goal is to develop a code of conduct for content creators, ensuring accountability and ethical responsibility in this rapidly evolving digital space. While we uphold the constitutional right to freedom of speech, we must also recognize the urgent need for regulation to prevent the misuse of digital platforms. The lack of oversight has allowed vloggers and online influencers to freely spread harmful narratives without fact-checking or ethical accountability. To address this, social media platforms like TikTok and Facebook must be treated as legitimate businesses requiring a franchise or accreditation system. By holding these platforms accountable for monitoring and removing defamatory content, we can foster a safer and more responsible digital environment. This measure will not only encourage ethical content creation, but also curb the spread of libelous and misleading information. Just as traditional media operates under legal and ethical standards, vloggers and online influencers must also be subject to similar regulations to prevent the reckless dissemination of falsehoods. In recent years, we have witnessed the alarming rise of trolls, vloggers, and malicious online actors who, under the guise of exercising free speech, systematically spread fake news and engage in character assassination. These individuals and groups, operating with seeming impunity, have poisoned public discourse and in many instances tarnished the reputation of those who dare challenge their narratives. Despite the existence of laws such as the Cybercrime Prevention Act, Filipinos remain vulnerable to online deception, harassment, and digital attacks that threaten not only individual lives but also the integrity of our democracy. The reality is that these network of trolls are not simply expressing opinions. They are engaged in a well-orchestrated, well-funded campaign to spread disinformation, manipulate public perception, and destabilize institutions. The sources of funding for these operations remain in the shadows, possibly linked to illicit activities such as POGO operations or criminal syndicates. These financial resources are weaponized to create chaos, erode trust in government, undermine the media, and weaken our democratic foundations. Ironically, but not surprisingly, none of these actors speak out against China's aggression in the West Philippine Sea, proving our suspicion of illegal foreign funding. Let us be clear. This is no longer a mere issue of online criticism. What we are facing is a calculated effort to deceive, defame, and discredit those who seek to uphold the truth. These trolls are mercenaries of disinformation, paid to disrupt, confuse, and divide. Their mission is to drown out facts, distort the truth, and silence those who speak out against corruption and injustice. We too have not been spared. As public servants, we have been personally targeted by these malicious actors. Myself, my colleagues, and even the President. We accept criticism when it pertains to our official duties. But it is evident that these attacks go beyond public accountability. Their true intent is to discredit us before the electorate and the people we serve through personal and baseless attacks. The Supreme Court in Labargan versus People of the Philippines, GR number 246824, citing Daquer Jr. versus People in GR number 206015, ruled that, and I quote, offensive imputations against public officers do not constitute defamation if these relate to their discharge of official duties unless the prosecution proves actual malice. Defamatory utterances are malicious when made with knowledge that they were false or with reckless disregard as to its falsity, unquote. But this issue is bigger than any individual case, Mr. Chairman. This is about every Filipino who has been a victim of online harassment, cyber libel, and digital deception. If we continue to ignore this growing problem, we are failing the people we have sworn to protect. Social media should never be a tool for personal attacks or harassments or the destruction of reputations. Those who exploit these platforms to spread black propaganda, lies, and harm others must be held accountable. We have also received reports of vloggers soliciting donations under the pretense of funding their content, only to be involved in scams and online fraud. All this must stop, Mr. Chair. Today, we commit ourselves to finding solutions. We will explore ways to protect the public from the dangers of fake news and disinformation while ensuring that our digital spaces remain safe, ethical, and credible for future generations. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. That was 10 minutes.
Nine minutes only.
It was short. Anyway, the next item of our agenda is the acknowledgements of the resource persons who are present today. Thank you for coming over. And the COMSEC is hereby directed to acknowledge those personalities. And to those who will not be acknowledged, please approach po yung ating mic and ask to be recognized by the chair. Thank you so much. Comsex, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning again. The following resource persons are present from the Department of Information and Communications Technology, Undersecretary Jeffrey E.N.D., Ms. Christine Applepre, Ms. Michelle Pagalilawan, Mr. Renato Del Rosario, and Attorney Don Josef Tiansay. From the Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center, Undersecretary Alexander K. Ramos, Attorney Alvin Navarro, and Ms. Christine Jane Flores. From the Department of Justice, Office of Cybercrime, Attorney Rodan Parocha. Secretary Ivan Uy. Apologies, sir. From the Department of Justice, Attorney Rodan Parocha of the DOJ Office of Cybercrime, with Head Agent Ina Marie Feliz Protasio Ladislao and State Counsel Attorney Kirshen Bautista. From the National Bureau of Investigation, Attorney Van Homer Angluben. From the National Telecommunications Commission, Attorney Andres Castelar Jr. From the Philippine National Police, Police Brigadier General Bernard Yang of the PNP Anti-Cybercrime Group, with Colonel Columbo Aberia of the ACG, Police Lieutenant Colonel Anacleto Daliva of the PNP Legal Service, Colonel Nova De Castro Aglipay, the Chief of the Legal Affairs Division of the ACG, and from the University of the Philippines, Associate Dean for the College of Media Communication, Dr. Rachel E. Can. From the Center for Policy and Executive Development of the UP, Dr. Enrico Basilio. And Ms. Angela Chavez, also from CPED. Online, we have Attorney Michael Chu of the UP College of Law. And online, we also have Dr. Jonathan Corpus Ong of Global Digital Media and the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. From the Kapisanan ng mga Broadcaster ng Pilipinas, Attorney Rudolph Holarbal. From Vera Files, Ms. Ellen Tordesillas, President and Co-Founder. Mr. Chair, from the social media personalities present that we invited 40 plus, sir, with us today are Attorney Rico Tomotorgo, Ms. Maria Lourdes Tiquia of Publicus Asia, and Mr. Mark Louis Gamboa. That's all, Your Honor, for now. Thank you.
Okay,
Additional resource person, sir, from Press 1, Mr. Felipe Ipe Salvosa, editor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Chair, just a clarification from COMSEC. Out of the
Go ahead, go ahead.
41 social media personalities, only 3 have attended.
Yes, Mr. Chair, some of them sent excuse letters
Okay.
via email.
yes, we have received of a different communication coming from the different resource persons, including the platforms like TikTok, YouTube, Google, and Facebook, Meta, Facebook, and to some personalities who have written us an excuse letter. They want to see or to acknowledge these excuse letters. Siguro isa-isay natin, no, para at least maging fair naman po doon sa mga resource persons who have attended while others have not. So ito po yung mga excuse na galing kay Chrisette Chu. I think this is reference to your invitation to joint inquiry. After careful consideration, I would like to respectfully turn down your invitation due to these following reasons. There are so many reasons, and maybe I'll be giving this to the members for their perusal afterwards. para makita natin what action to be taken. Also from Aaron Peña, meron din po siyang excuse letter. Yes, Mr. kay ano din, kay Mark Anthony Lopez, just received today. I think this is also an excuse letter. Kay June Abines, after having a discussion with my lawyers, I regret to inform you that I won't be attending the hearing today because the objective of the hearing is an attempt to curtail the people's right to expression. From Richard Mata, thank you for the invitation. I just received this yesterday. Just a day before the event, I consulted my lawyer and was advised not to attend. The late invitation plus the unclear purpose of the event. We support the freedom of speech. We also support it. From Elizabeth Joy Cruz, same excuse, meron din excuse. Kay Attorney Trixie Cruz Angeles, I respectfully decline this invitation as I question the legality of the inquiry as well as the proposed legislation for being violative of the constitutional guarantee of free speech. From Ethel Garcia, decline as well. From Maui Spencer, out of the country. From Sean Wayne, long excuse. And sa TikTok, YouTube, and Meta. So I think the members have to decide on the other members who have not given us any excuse letter for not attending on this resource person.
Mr. Chair.
Congressman Marcoleta and then Congressman Abante.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Judging from the title of the resolution before us, is it correct to assume that this hearing is only limited to social media platforms?
No, of course not.
Because the way I see it, it only addresses the problems, alleged problems encountered against bloggers.
No, Chairman, Congressman Marcoleta. That's the reason why we have invited as well the government agencies and also the academe and other media outlets who have parameters on.
But we have not invited members of the mainstream media, Mr. Chair.
We did. And that's the reason why we're asking for the excuse letter as well, because a while ago, the COMSEC have acknowledged the persons of the resource persons who have been invited.
Did we invite, Mr. Chair, Philippine Inquirer and Philippine Star?
COMSEC, can you please reply to the query of the good gentleman from Sagi Party List?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Philippine Daily Inquirer was not invited, Mr. Chair.
How about
Mr. Chairman?
other social media? How about some other major media outlets?
Philippine Star, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, KBP was invited, kapisanan ng mga broadcasters sa
And the
Pilipinas.
presence of the KBP is here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did that satisfy the query of Congressman Marcoleta?
Because I think, Mr. Chair, even the not only the social media are supposed to be invited, but also the mainstream media. I am personally victimized by these two popular newspapers, broadsheets. May I cite a particular example just to dramatize, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Kaya importante lang sana, gusto ko rin silang marinig ko nandito.
You want
Just a
to-
point of order.
So what's the point of order of?
We are still in checking all the invitations that was sent to all the invitees. At the same time, Mr. Chairman, some of those invitees are not present. And with regards to the query being made by Congressman Coleta, I do believe that he has a basis for that. And since, Mr. Chairman, the COMSEC has confirmed that indeed Philippine Daily Inquirer and Philippine Star are not invited into today's hearing. Since Congressman Marcoleta is not a member of this committee, may I respectfully move, Mr. Chairman, that in the next hearing, we will invite Philippine Daily Inquirer and Philippine Star to expedite discussion, Mr. Chairman. So move, Mr. Chairman.
May I know, Mr. Chair, why
by Congressman Paduano, and we have to tackle first the motion. Huh? We have to tackle the motion.
I
that
second
was,
the motion.
and there's
Honorable Paduano.
that was duly seconded. Any objection? Hearing none, the said motion is now approved. So, Congressman Marcoleta, your query is valid. Unfortunately, I think it's the fault of the COMSEC for not inviting, because you have to consider as well that we have invited so many already for the bloggers. It was like 40, and we cannot accommodate everybody. And that's the reason why your query is so valid that we will be inviting them in the next hearing. And at the same time, having said that, your story about being victimized of those two broadsheet can be tackled in the next hearing. So the next item.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, you have the floor right now, Congressman.
I just would like to find out if Miss Elizabeth Joey Cruz, a.k.a. Joey Vivre, was invited.
Consent,
If he
please.
was invited,
Mr. Chairman, once
I'd
again,
like,
a point of order, Mr. Chairman.
What's the point of order?
Once again, Mr. Chairman, the floor is still with Congressman Marcoleta, and is she okay na po ba? Kay
No.
Congressman Marcoleta with regards to the query that
Well,
I
actually,
moved to invite Philippine Daily Inquirer and Philippine Star.
Yes,
And
yes,
it was
yes.
approved. Now,
Well, actually, I have already taken action.
I
on
know,
the
but
query of
the floor is still
Congressman,
with Congressman Marcoleta, and I asked personally Congressman Marcoleta to the chair if he is satisfied with the motion that I have made, Mr. Chairman. And after that, siguro, let's proceed with another member of the House, of this committee. Mr.
Congressman
Chairman.
Marcoleta, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I still have to include another aspect of inquiry. Kasi hindi lamang po yung social media at saka yung mainstream media. I was also personally victimized by certain survey firms. Nagsasurvey po sila. For example po, yung SWS, kailangan sabihin ko na po. Nag-survey po sila ng third quarter survey last year. And they listed 40 names, senatorial preferences. Nandito po sa akin, ibibigay ko po yung kopya po, reference ng ating committee. There are 40 names mentioned and indicated in that list. Ito po, Mr. Chair. Gusto ko lamang pong i-emphasize na dito sa 4 na pong senatoriables po na kanilang ginamit dito sa survey na to, meron pong 6 na relatively unknown. Babasahin ko po ang pangalan. Adonis Jerome, Andamo Jocelyn, Arambolo Ronel, Doringo Mimi, Floranda Mori, Danilo Ramos. Meron po naman 7 na sikat, Mr. Chair, pero hindi naman nagpahayag po ng pagtakbo bilang senador. Andyan na po si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte, dating Senador Franklin Drilon, dating Senador Richard Gordon, Harry Roque, dating Vice Presidente Robredo Maria Leonor, at saka po yung ating Secretary of Defense, Gilbert Chodoro. Pero po malinaw dito, Mr. Chair, hindi po nila ako nilagay dito sa 40. Pero no pong yung outcome pong ito ipalabas nila, number 36 po ako. Paano po mangyayari na ako po ay magiging number 36 hindi naman po kasali rito? Ito po yung klase ng mga manipulative surveys na pinaniniwalaan po ng mga tao. Sana po hindi na lang nila ako sinama sapagkat wala naman ako rito. Sino po ba si Adonis Jerome, Andamo Jocelyn, Arambolo Ronel, Doringo Mimi, Floranda Modi, Mr. Kong Barbers, may kilala ka ba rito? Bakit naman po, hindi ko naman po pinagpipilitan na isama nila ako rito. Ang problema, hindi po ako kasama, Mr. Chair, pero nilagay po nila ako doon sa resulta, number 36 ako. Hindi naman po tatama ito. Ito po yung gusto nating i-address lahat. Hindi lamang po social media.
We understand that your predicament,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Congressman Marcoleta. And,
Bibigay ko po yung
and this
kopya para sa
and this
referensya po.
representation also doesn't believe that. Because on my own assumption, nasa top 5 ka. So, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman, just
Mr. Chair.
But kidding aside, no.
Mr. Chair.
Kidding aside. We have to tackle that issue as well, that being espoused by Congressman Marcoleta. So we will be inviting over in the next hearing, what survey firm is that? SWS and the Pulse Asia. Ilan ba yan?
Ito lang muna yung nakita ko.
Because-
At saka yung Manila Broadcasting Corporation.
MBC. Because in the House resolution itself, the House resolution number 2147, it clearly states,
social media lang.
Yeah.
Medyo lang eh.
Oh, kaya yun lang yung topic natin. But we cannot,
But it was
prohibited.
delivered. No. Congressman Barbers, you have delivered in your privilege speech a wide, comprehensive approach on this matter.
That
And
is
I think
correct, Mr.
inviting
Chair.
over the survey firm is also correct.
Yeah, maybe we
Because
can
we are tackling
expand.
not only the House resolution number 2147, we're also tackling two privileged speeches that was delivered by you. So I think may basis po yung kay Congressman Marcoleta. Okay, and at the same time, so there's a
Mr. Chair,
noted po yung kay Congressman Marcoleta. Now,
May I now
Congressman
be
Chairman
recognized?
Abante, now you are recognized.
my query is if we have invited a certain Elizabeth Cruz, no, aka Joey De Vibre, Mr. Chair, if we have invited her and she has an excuse letter, may I know what was the excuse, Mr. Chairman?
Comsec, please answer the query of Congressman Abante. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Elizabeth Joy Cruz was invited and she sent an excuse letter via email.
Ano po yung kanyang excuse letter? Ano yung dahilan?
One moment, sir. I'll get it from the chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Comsec, can you kindly also try to tell us those resource persons who have not attended this committee hearing? You may mga excuse letter, okay yun. But those who have not reply to our request to be present on today's hearing.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Chair.
particularly first, Mr. Chair,
Congressman Abante.
particularly I am referring to AKA Joe De Vivre sapagkat matindi yung kanyang mga sinabi dito. Gusto ko talagang makita siya at makausap sapagkat dito minura niya ako at ang sabi niya, panay kabobohan sa quad, sayang kuryente sa'yo.
Problem sa kanya.
Ano yung pack you? Yung pack you. Hindi ko alam yung pack. Huwag mo na sabihin.
Congressman Abante.
Pagkatapos, lang. Katutuloy ko lang sa
Mr. Chairman, Congressman, don't be so personal. Let's be more comprehensive on this approach,
Yeah,
please.
binabasa ko lang eh.
Oh, sige, go ahead. I'll give you
Pangalawa, November 13, 2024, nagmura na naman siya. Hindi ko na babanggitin yung mura niya. Pag tinatanong kung anong legislation ginawa niyo in relation to this BS, ano ba yung BS? BS inquiry, sasagot ka, paswelduhan ka ng taxpayers, gago. November 3, 2024, si Benny Abante at si Romel Marbil ay mga protektor ng illegal na droga dahil pilit nilang pinalalabas na hindi ito ganun kasama. Tapos sabing ganyan, si Dan Fernandez and Ace Barber's survey are depressing. Alam na nila na matatalo sila sa eleksyon. So what is the hearing for? Smoke screen for the Biscam. Tinabi ko ito sapagkat matindi po itong mga akusasyon na ibinigay nitong gusto ko nilang magmura Hindi na ako bumumura muna. Oo.
Chairman Abante.
Kailangan po, itong mga to, ang tatapang nila eh. Ang tatapang sa pagmumura, nang wala tayong kalaban-laban. Ngayon, pag kaharap dito, hindi makaharap dito. Oo. Mga takot din pala yung mga yan eh.
Please hold your fire, please.
Hindi,
Mr. Chairman.
I'm holding my
We're
fire.
just on the process of administrative, ano pa lang muna tayo, Congressman
ito.
Abante. We can tackle that on the interpellation.
Hindi, Mr. Chair, gusto ko lang pong bagitin tong kanyang excuse letter. O nakalagay dito, after meaningful consultation with my lawyers, gumaya pa ng abogado. I have decided to respectfully decline. Respectfully? Minumura tayo, respectfully? To share my knowledge on matters. Hindi knowledge ang kailangan natin.
Ask the lawyer if this is
Oo. Ask the lawyers kung libelous yung ginawa nyo o slander. No, O nakalagay, I would like to categorically state that I am neither paid by POGO operators. Hindi yun ang pinag-uusapan. Pinag-uusapan natin yung mga sinabi niya. Tapos respectfully, Elizabeth Joey Cruz, nga nakikinig po sa atin ngayon, nanonood ngayon. Humarap ka dito, kumatapang ka. Hirap sa iyo, nagmumura ka nang dyan na wala kaming kalaban-laban. Humarap ka dito. Dito. Namo.
Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
No, wait. Quiet.
Chairman.
Please observe, refrain from laughing or whatever expression you wanted to, please observe decency and, of course,
Mr. Chair, I move that
with
we
all due
strike
wait.
out.
With all due respect, with all due respect with Congressman Abante, I feel your sentiment, I feel your sentiment, but we are in the process of finding out the, yung pong implementation of the 10175, and I respect your freedom of expression, but what I'm trying to tell you is to refrain from the fire that you wanted to express, But for now, nandun pa lang po tayo sa administrative matter, and we wanted to finish that, and then we will be discussing, or we will be approving the ground rules. Wala pa po yung ground rules, and kaya nga po, doon sana yung kay Chairman Abante, doon papatak yan sa ground rules. Anyway, having said that, siguro we'll proceed to the next item
Mr.
of our
Chair,
agenda is to approve.
So that we can have an
Yeah, go
orderly hearing, we must first approve the ground rules. I believe that the COMSEC has already distributed copies of the ground rules
Correct.
to the members present. So therefore, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the ground rules.
Yes, there's a motion to approve the ground rules, and I believe that the members of this committee have already received the yung pong ground rules natin, and you have already read it. So siguro I need a second motion for this. Any second motion? This was duly seconded. Any objection? Hearing none, the said motion is now approved. Hindi ko babasahin yung ground rules. So the next item of our agenda is for all the
Mr. Chair,
yes, Congressman Zamora.
I would like to reiterate my earlier motion to strike out the expletive that was mentioned by my idol, Representative Abante, earlier.
Second
Alright.
motion.
Mr. Chair,
Second motion.
I object because it was not an expletive. Sinabi ko lang, namo. That can mean anything. That
1
can
minute
mean
suspension.
anything.
Hearing resumed.
If that is the...
No, it was seconded, Mr. Chairman. And the objection to Congressman Abante, it's up to the members if they will vote for it, for the objection to Chairman Abante.
1 minute suspension.
Okay na.
Hearing resumed. So there's a motion to strike out the word that was delivered by Congressman Abante, and this was duly seconded. Any objection?
Mr.
Hearing none, the
Chair.
said motion is now approved.
Mr.
Okay,
Chair,
yes,
I
Congressman
just would
Abante.
like to manifest na because it was the emotion made by she's just like a daughter to me because her father is a very good friend of mine. So I would like to withdraw my objection, although it is not actually an expletive.
Yeah.
But I'm withdrawing it for the sake of the motion, Mr. Chair.
So the next item of our agenda is the administering the oath of the resource persons. Those who have been invited to attend this committee hearing, please stand up, and the COMSEC is hereby directed to administer the oath of the resource persons.
May we request all the resource persons invited to stand, raise your right hand, and repeat after me. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this inquiry? Thank you. Please take your seat.
Mr. Chair, once again,
Go ahead.
we would like to have an orderly proceedings of the hearings. So therefore, we have some reminders to the members because after this, we will now proceed to the deliberation and discussion. Please be reminded that pursuant to our ground rules, House members shall register with the committee secretary and shall be recognized on a first-to-register basis. Members shall be given 10 minutes each for their interpellation, excluding the answers of the resource persons. No member, except the chairpersons or the presiding officer and the senior deputy speaker, shall be allowed to speak or make interjections during the course of the interpellation of a member unless and until recognized by the lead chairperson or the presiding officer. Lastly, we enjoin everyone to observe proper decorum and basic courtesy in our proceedings. Please address your questions to the co-chairs and wait to be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair Pimentel.
Chairman.
So, muna tapos doon. The next is Chairman Aquino for the discussion proper. Please discuss it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the permission of my co-chairs, I would like to propose that we first hear from the academe, then government agencies and independent media organizations to give us a situationer on the social media landscape. Each presenter shall have 10 minutes. Thank you.
So the proposed flow of discussion, una po yung academe, si Dr. Jonathan Ong, then academe muna, then government agencies, then the independent media organization. This will be the flow of our discussion. But for the meantime, going back to the administrative matter, Congressman Chairman Chairman Paduano, have something to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a matter of procedure, Mr. Chairman. And a protocol of every committee hearing, Mr. Chairman. All resource person being invited in every hearing and absent should have an excuse letter or explanation. And if that excuse letter is valid and acceptable to the committee members, so we will just invite them to the next hearing. But for all those resource persons with an excuse letter or without an excuse letter, they should be invited through a show cause order for the next hearing, Mr. Chairman. So that's a matter of protocol and procedural in every committee hearing, Mr. Chairman. That's why I want to go back to the invited guest that was mentioned by Congressman Abante. And it's up to Congressman Abante what will be the next step for this committee, for his or her invitation in the next hearing. I just want to make it clear, Mr. Chairman, that all invitees who are not present in today's hearing, the committee should have a proper disposition with regards to their invitation, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So what's the pleasure of
Chair.
the body?
Mr. Chair, in relation to what
So there's a manifestation by Congressman Abante that those who have not written any excuse letter will be invited again in the next hearing. Actually, hindi to motion, but it's a procedure that is being governed as, no? So, doon sa mga resource persons na hindi po nakarating, na hindi nagpadala ng mga excuse letter, you are being invited again in the next hearing. And for those who have written an excuse letter, what's the pleasure of this body on the excuse letters that they have sent us? Because they have
Mr.
written
Chairman,
as letters.
Mr. Chairman, kasi po, procedure, depende po sa content ng excuse letter if it is valid or not. That's why, I suggest, kaya lang, ay tumatagal tayo dito,
Yeah.
I suggest sana na we will discuss each and every excuse letter. Kasi magkaiba po reason at saka content ng letter.
Correct.
Diba? For example, in the case of the person that was mentioned by Congressman Abante, ganun po yung sagot niya. Shall we invite her, babae ba? Shall we invite her again or issue a show cause order? For me, Mr. Chairman, that is offensive and we should also issue a show cause order for her. And we'll not just invite her in the next hearing, we will issue a show cause order for that person. Mr. Chairman.
According sa, okay, thank you so much for that, Congressman Paduano. According sa Section 9 of our rules, witnesses shall be granted more than two postponements of appearance before the committee without justifiable cause. So we can issue a show cause order because wala silang justifiable reason.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Congressman Ako, please.
we must distinguish the resource person who was invited but did not offer any excuse from the resource person who was invited but came up with a letter excuse. So why should we treat them the same? According to our protocols, as we have done in the previous committee hearings, those invited persons who did not offer any excuse, the next order is for them, for the committee to issue a show cause order to explain why. And for those people who offered an excuse for their absence, it's up for the committee to determine whether the excuse is acceptable or not. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I think we have so many excuse letters that were given to us by the COMSEC.
Mr. Chair,
And
particularly,
yes,
the excuse order, the excuse letter of this Miss Elizabeth Joey Cruz. She said, I know that the time of the committee is precious and I am coming from deep concern on prudent utilization of public resources. Mr. Chair, this is contemptible. This is not respecting this committee. How dare she would say the prudent utilization of public resources. I therefore make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we issue a show cause order on this Elizabeth Joey Cruz. I move therefore, Mr. Chair.
so there's a motion to issue a show cause order to that resource person. What's the name? Elizabeth Cruz. And there was a second motion. Any objection? Hearing none, the said motion is now approved. Yun po yung merong excuse letter. And there's still a lot. Like, for example, yung kay Sean Wayne, kay Maui Spencer, kay Ethel Garcia. But you have to read the content of their excuse letter. Like, for example, one of these, you want to move on this, or you want to discuss this on a later part of the discussion? Or you want to have an omnibus motion with all of this, But there are excuse letters which are valid. Like, for example, this personality, nasa Singapore siya. So, katulad nito, out of the country, si Maui Spencer, for not being there in our country yet. Nasa Singapore siya for vacation. So, I think excuse yung kanyang ano. Yung Attorney Abiles, sige. After having discussion with my lawyer, isa-isayin na natin to kung gusto nyo. Okay, after having discussion with my lawyers, I regret to inform you that I won't be attending the hearing today because the objective of the hearing is an attempt to curtail the people's right to expression. So, kay June Abines.
With that excuse letter, Mr. Chairman, I found it not valid and I move to issue a show cause or June Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
there's a motion to issue a show cause order to this resource person. Any second the motion?
Second.
There's a second the motion. Any objection? Hearing none, the said motion is now approved.
Okay. You know, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Go ahead.
you know, Mr. Chair, para lang doon sa mga nanonood, no, ito pong hearing na ito ay hindi para kitilin o isuppress yung freedom of speech nila. Wala ho kaming ganong layunin. Ang layunin po natin dito ay gawan ng pulisiya ang paggamit ng social media platforms. Dapat po meron tayong disiplina, meron tayong code of conduct, meron tayong ethics sa paggamit nitong social media. Hindi yung pagbukas mo ng social media, magmumura ka. Meron dyan, nagso-social media, nagbablog, walang ginawa araw-araw kundi manawagan ng kaguluhan sa ating bansa, nananawagan ng people power, nananawagan ng kudeta. Yung ba ay tama, Mr. Chair? Ang punto lang natin dito is magkaroon tayo ng ganitong ng regulasyon o regulatory policy para kagaya po ng mga broadcasters, meron po silang KBP. Kagaya po ng mga manunulat sa dyaryo, meron po silang NUJP. They're all bound by rules and regulations. But in this social media, the use of social media platforms, unfortunately, wala po tayong ganyan sa ngayon. At hindi po pwede na gawin pong rason ng mga yan na meron tayong freedom, na kine-curtail natin yung freedom of speech nila. Huwag niyo pong lokohin ang taong bayan. Wala hong curtailment o suppression ng freedom of speech dito. Kaya nga kayo inimbita rito eh. Diba? Kaya kayo inimbita dito para makapagpahayag din kayo. Hindi po ba iyan ay tamang freedom of expression? Ba't ngayon nagpapadala kayo ng mga sulat na hindi kayo pwede kasi hindi kayo naniniwala sa layunin ng pagdinig na ito? Wag po kayo magtago sa mga ganyan. Ang tatapang nyo. Sabi nga ni Congressman Abante, in the advent of social media, suddenly Filipinos become political analysts. They become journalists. They become experts. We need your wisdom. Diba? Kayo, ang gagaling nyo magtuligsa eh. Dito nyo gawin para nang sa ganun, makagawa tayo ng isang polisiya na hindi po maabuso ito. Ngayon, nandiyan kayo sa social media. Kung mag-retire kayo, wala na kayo, hindi na paano kaya yung mga susunod na mga vloggers? Yun lamang po ang layunin natin dito. Kaya wag kayong magdahilan na hindi kayo nagpupunta rito dahil hindi kayo pupunta rito kasi hindi kayo naniniwala sa layunin ng investigasyon na ito. We want to craft a policy, a remedial legislation so that there will be discipline and code of ethics in the practice and use of our social media platform, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. 7 na lang naman pala to. So, tapusin na natin, maikli na lang to. Ito may excuse letter din si Mark Anthony de la Cruz Lopez. I were supposed to stand in front of this committee today in what has been asserted as inquiry on fake news peddlers, narco-bloggers, and pogo-funded bloggers in aid of legislation. I would have loved to really open up and tell you my story on how I evolved from being an ordinary citizen. Mahaba po siya, mga 5 pages siya. Pero tinitingnan ko po, you see Mr. Fernandez and Barbers, I reiterate that I am a citizen of the Republic and I actually understand that the premise of your so-called inquiry is without basis, nor cannot understand on solid legal ground. I therefore invoke my rights as provided for in the Constitution and decline your invitation. So, mahaba po yung kanyang letter and I cannot understand fully, but this is the content of the letter. So, what's the pleasure of the body?
Mr. Chairman, once again, the letter I suggested that was sent to this committee is not valid. I move to issue a cause order for that invited guest.
Okay, so there's a motion
Second,
to
Mr.
issue a
Chairman.
show cause order to Mr. Mark Anthony Lopez. Any second the motion?
Second.
Any objection? Hearing none? Yes, the said motion is now approved. Okay, ito naman galing kay Attorney Trixie Angeles. I respectfully decline this invitation as I question the legality of the inquiry as well as the proposed legislation for being violative of the constitutional guarantee of free speech.
Is he a lawyer? Is he a lawyer?
Yes, Attorney Trixie.
A lawyer.
I think, attorney. So what's the pleasure of the body?
Mr. Chairman, I might have two motions, Mr. Chairman. First motion, Mr. Chairman, is to issue a show cause order to Attorney what?
Trixie Angeles.
Attorney Angeles.
Shokos din yan.
That is my first motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, about the...
I second the motion.
Duly seconded. Any objection? Hearing none, the said motion is now approved.
My second motion, Mr. Chairman, is for the legal department of this House to study if ever there is a violation because he is an officer of the court. And he should respect the constitutional duty of Congress. And question of legality, Mr. Chairman, I respectfully move that we will consult the legal department of this House for a possible disbarment case against Attorney Trixie, ano apelyido? Angeles po. So move, Mr. Chairman.
The COMSEC is hereby directed. Oh, no, it's a motion. So there's a motion to...
Second.
Wait. Your motion is to ask the legal department.
The legal department for a possible disbursement case against Attorney Trixie Angeles.
So there's a motion cited by Congressman Paduano. Any second the motion? Duly seconded. Any objection? Hearing none, the said motion is now approved. About Richard Mata, thank you for your invitation. I just received this yesterday, just a day before the event. I consulted my lawyer and was advised not to attend. The late invitation plus the unclear purpose of the event, we support the freedom of speech. So, what's the pleasure of this body?
The same thing with the others, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion to,
But I think we have a
to issue a show cause order on her.
There's a motion. Any second the motion? Duly second. Any objection? Hearing none, the said motion is now approved. About the Aaron Peña. While I initially wanted to accept, I would like to respectfully decline your invitation to share my knowledge on matters that were raised by Representative Ace Barbers in his privileged speeches. Last year, after a series of consultation with my lawyers, I would like to categorically state that I'm neither paid by POGO operators nor drug lords, and so my knowledge is not used for the goal of the joint committee. Same thing. Motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to issue a show cause order for...
There's a motion to issue a show cause order to this person. Any second the motion? Second the motion. Duly seconded? Any
Second.
objection? Hearing none, the said motion is now approved. And Kisette Chu. This in reference to your invitation to the joint inquiry congressional hearing on social media. After careful consideration, would like to respectfully turn down your invitation due to these following reasons. Mahaba po yung reasons. 4 pages. And sa nababasa ko ba, ang tema niya ay justification of the laws protecting their rights. So I think, what's the pleasure again? I think it's not about health reasons or whatever. It's also justifying not to be present on today's hearing.
Once again, Mr. Chairman, I move to issue a show cause order
There's
for
a
the
motion
mentioned
to issue
invited guests.
show cause order to Ms. Crisette Chu, and this was duly seconded. Hearing no objection, the said motion is now approved. About the Sean Wayne, it's a long excuse as well. No health issues and not out of the country. So I think same. No, it's not out of the country. So, nag-decline lang siya. And this goes also to Miss Ethel Garcia, para yun na po yung last natin. So, dalawa po sila. Same naman ang reason almost.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we issue show cause order for both the invitees that was mentioned by the chairman.
Okay.
So
There's
move,
a
Mr.
motion
Chairman.
to issue show cause order to Ms. Ethel Garcia and Sean Wayne. Duly seconded. Any objection? Hearing none, the said motion is now approved. So now we will be...
Mr. Chairman, just one last
Yes.
admin.
11:30 na. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, the committee has received a letter coming from the Philippine Entertainment Portal, and they're requesting for their presence to be invited in the next hearing, Mr. Chairman, so that they can also give some inputs with regards to the House resolution that we are tackling in today's hearing, Mr. Chairman. So move, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
so we will be inviting them over as well. There's a motion, duly seconded by Congressman Luistro. Any objection? The said motion, on the said motion, hearing no objection, the said motion is now approved. Okay, punta na po tayo sa flow ng presentation natin. Kanina, sinabi po natin yung academe po mauna. We will be recognizing via Zoom si Dr. Rachel Khan, Associate Dean, UP College of Media and Communication. Pakinggan po natin yung mga taga-academe natin. Go ahead. Andiyan ba siya?
Kasi mag-out na siya.
Okay, so unahin po muna natin si Dr. Jonathan Ong, University of Massachusetts. Andiyan po ba siya? Via Zoom as well. So via Zoom. Sige, go ahead. Sige, Dr. Ong, you are now recognized. Sige, Dr. Ong, you are now recognized. Please proceed.
Academic research and tech policy papers on social media and disinformation. Since 2016, I've collaborated with many news and nonprofit organizations in the country. Several of them are invited and present in today's hearings. I've also presented in previous hearings on fake news at the Senate related to elections as well as on
Chairman, can you
foreign
let him stop
interference.
for a while
So
so
ang una ko pong
Dr.
layunin...
Jonathan Ong, for a while, we have problem with the audio. Can you refrain from speaking just yet? So, technical, can you kindly increase lang po yung volume? Dr. Jonathan Ong, you can now proceed, please. We'll
Okay.
just try to check it out.
All right. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, okay,
And
go
can
ahead,
you see
go
my
ahead.
presentation?
No, it's much better. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay,
Video,
so
video.
magandang umaga po. I'm a professor based po ako
Mr.
dito sa
Jonathan
Boston.
Ong,
But
Dr.
before
Jonathan
I was
Ong,
a
again,
professor sa
I'm
Ateneo
sorry,
de Manila.
Jonathan.
I'm a disinformation researcher and director of Sigla Research Center based po sa Manila, and I've been publishing academic research on social media and disinformation since 2016, and I've collaborated with many human rights organizations and newsrooms, some of them present in today's hearings. I've also presented at the Senate on fake news and elections, as well as on foreign interference. So, ang una ko pong layunin sa araw na ito ay magbahagi ng research on disinformation. Number 2 is to review trends in global context. It's important to conduct comparative research with our neighboring countries kung ano-ano na nga ba yung mga effective solutions based on other countries' direct experiences, including with legislation. Pag-usapan po natin kung paano maaaring suportahan at posibleng pondohan ng gobyerno ang iba't ibang mga interventions. Third, it's important that we share lessons of what has worked and what hasn't in the Philippine context for tech justice solutions on disinformation in influence operations. So na-publish na po siya sa iba't ibang bansa pero na-kolekto po siya dito sa Research Archive. Altogether, and reviewing all of them, you can learn about trends across 3 election cycles from 2016, 2019, and 2022 elections. Most recently, we have one paper that also summarizes trends across all 3. Some of you might know that as a sociologist, my specific methodology has also been focused on understanding the business of disinformation for hire. Ito po yung paano magpatakbo ng digital operations during elections and yung mga kampanya at kung ano-ano yung mga klase ng operators na kumikita ng pera from disinformation campaigning. We also include papers in this archive led by other academics such as Fatima Gao who discussed influencer marketing and paano kumikita ng pera ang mga influencers bawat halalan using advertising technology of social media platforms. Finally, we have collected research about counter-disinformation actors in the Philippines and kung ano-ano yung mga interventions na na-implement dito sa ating bansa. So, baka may mga nakakaalam na po sa inyo itong research paper published noong 2018 entitled Architects of Network Disinformation. I was asked to share this with you again today. This research was co-authored with Jason Cabañas, and this analyzed the behind-the-scenes work of disinformation campaigns, how they are organized, the different kinds of workers involved, who sets the agenda, and who executes the campaign. So our research involved interviews with politicians, political operators at various levels of the hierarchy, kasama na dito mga advertising and PR specialists, influencers, fake account operators, and digital volunteers. This academic paper has also been translated as a podcast produced by Puma Podcast, where we interviewed disinformation whistleblowers. So ito po yung mga operators na nagtrabaho sa mga political campaigns, and you can hear from them directly. Maririnig nyo how they were recruited into their work at paano sila kumikita ng pera. 3 of our findings: political trolls are not tech-brainwashed, uneducated, poor voters in rural areas. Some of them are from middle-class families, and they see political trolling as just a side gig, a hustle to make ends meet. There are different kinds of workers, and we need to hold accountable the people at the top, yung mga elites in advertising and PR industries. Ibig sabihin, sana wag lang po natin habulin yung mga low-level workers, yung mga bots, but pati na rin yung mga mastermind. Pero mahirap pong gawin itong kind of research. Ang naging pangalan po sa methodology ng research na ito ay Disinformation for Hire, yung pag-aaral ng paano nagiging hanap buhay, kumbaga, ang paggawa ng fake news sa industriya. So ang napag-aralan namin ay ito. Investigative research into the business of disinformation is risky and costly. It requires financial investment and also legal support. So yung mga researchers and journalists who do this are also threatened when doing this kind of risky research. This is difficult to execute because it requires the cooperation of whistleblowers. Ibig sabihin, hindi lang ito monitoring kung ano yung nakikita natin sa social media. Kailangan may ma-invite tayo na magpa-interview sa mga researcher ng mga tao na insiders talaga sa industriya. This means that we need civil society to support worker power movement building in the digital and creative industries. Kailangan ma-encourage natin sila at magkaisa, mapag-usapan ng ethics or lack thereof sa industriya. So, may iba't ibang interventions na nasubukan na. So, for example, codes of ethics have been attempted by legal advocacy groups like Lente, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Unfortunately, these attempts have had very little buy-in from advertising and PR agencies themselves because it threatens their ways of working and their bottom line. Thus, it has become easier to just hunt and fact-check low-level trolls and bots rather than to hold accountable itong mga masterminds. So, pag-usapan din natin ng foreign interference. And it's important that we review prior research. Of course, it's important to invest in cybersecurity monitoring of foreign interference. Ito po yung pag-track ng mga bot accounts operated overseas and how they interfere on wedge issues, such as how Chinese accounts were discovered by Facebook's own investigation as pushing CCP propaganda around the West Philippine Sea. However, we also need to fund local investigative research that can probe the transnational labor networks to expose itong mga financial transactions during campaigns, especially during elections. So for example, during the 2019 elections, we found at least one example of a Chinese mainland business tycoon funding a local politician's digital operations for a mayoral race. dahil may personal business interests siya sa lugar na iyon at naisip niya na matulungan itong local politician. This should also count as foreign interference and ways of circumventing campaign finance regulation in the country. So, kasama na din sa pag-discuss ng foreign interference, we need to understand how it can come from many different countries, including from our allied countries, such as the United States. Reuters journalists last year exposed the Pentagon as seeding anti-vaccine memes in our country at the height of COVID. We need to pursue unanswered questions from this expose, including identifying possible local Filipino collaborators who participated in the translation and dissemination of this US-funded disinformation campaign. So I'm almost at the very end of this presentation. I just wanted to highlight research from other neighboring countries about the risks of top-down government legislation against fake news. So it's important to recognize that many human rights organizations and international legal scholars have raised alarm about the global trend of anti-fake news laws being used as quote-unquote weaponized lawfare. Ang sabi po ng maraming eksperto ay ang mga batas ukol sa fake news ay karanasan nagagamit in an inconsistent and arbitrary fashion, often used by incumbent politicians and governments to target activists, critics, journalists, and opposition parties. So kahit mabuti ang intensyon ng batas, kung hindi specific at transparent ang batas at ang mga implementers na ito, top-down regulation can actually do more harm than good. Kaya nga, kahit UNESCO, nakaaway siya ng mga civil society organizations around Southeast Asia in 2023. So nagalit ang mga civil society organizations sa UNESCO for trying to encourage governments to have control of social media content. They had 3 objections. In effect, this would be rubber stamping local overregulation. It would embolden authoritarian regulators, and it would incentivize platforms to comply with illegitimate government requests. So these objections are not new. Back in 2018, the Center for the Protection of Journalists spoke out against how journalists have been imprisoned on charges of fake news spreading. It's important to note that we should consider different kinds of legislation, hindi lang po imprisonment and fines penalizing social media users. Pwede din po ay legislation focused at big tech corporation na focus siya on content corrections, so mandating big tech to implement content corrections, or number 2, administrative compliance measures for participating in transparency mechanisms with independent researchers. So I'm almost at the final slide, and so now, given the risks of top-down legislation that might do harm than good, yung advocacy ng Sigla Research Center is kailangan civil society-driven ang lunas sa fake news, and kailangan angkop sa ating konteksto. We need to have full awareness of risks of regulatory capture and overreach. So these are 4 very practical solutions that would be more civil society driven rather than top-down and overreaching. First is to broaden the focus beyond content takedowns. Government should be supporting independent research and civil society to mitigate local businesses of disinformation for hire. So kahit meron pong examples of foreign interference, mas typical pa rin itong local disinformation. Number 2, you can support whole of society coalitions where academics, journalists, legal experts, librarians, educators, and human rights agencies apply diverse methodologies to promote a healthy public sphere. Hindi lang po isa yung methodology, but kailangan iba't ibang sektor ng ating lipunan ay mag-collaborate. Number 3, you can target social media platforms. You can pressure them for transparency initiatives and external audits of their policies as well as their algorithms. These can be reviewed by independent, non-partisan researchers and civil society organizations. Number four, and this is recognizing the broader context of an inevitable contraction of funding because of U.S. foreign aid being contracting, as well as funding from big tech corporations for fact-checking also being halted. You can augment the funding of civil society who are the front line for fighting disinformation. And I just wanted to shout out some of those civil society organizations that you can be supporting and the different methodologies that they have been using to fight fake news. We argue that we need to support all of these methodologies and support ways that they can all work collaboratively rather than work in silos. So thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jonathan Corpus Ong, for that informative presentation. Maybe later the members of this committee will be asking questions, but for the meantime we'll be proceeding to the next resource person who will be presenting as well. So University of the Philippines, Dr. Rachel Ican, Associate Dean College of Mass Communication. You are now recognized, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
By present siya. O sige ma'am, you are now recognized, please.
Honorable Chair, distinguished members of Congress, ladies and gentlemen, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Correct ko lang po yung sa designation, tapos na po yung term ko as Associate Dean. I am a Professor of Journalism at the UP College of Mass Communication. I am also a co-founder of Check.ph, isa pong collaborative coalition ng mga fact-checkers dito sa Pilipinas, where we strive to cite or help the public distinguish disinformation narratives. If you allow me, I have slides po for the misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. Bakit po kailangan i-distinguish ito sa ating if ever future legislation or any civil society, even civil society actions? Kasi po, iba ang intent. Ang misinformation po, all of this is, yes, they all result in false information. However, the intent is different. Misinformation po ay pagkakamali po, dahil we are all humans and we make mistakes. So sometimes we believe something is true, di ba? Yung mga ibang nagkakamali dito, nagpo-post ng yung pala hindi totoo. Kadalasan hindi naman nila intentional na ipalaganap ang mali. However, ibang usapan to sa disinformation. Yung mga nagpro-provide ng disinformation, sadya po nilang pinapalaganap ang maling impormasyon para manipula ang public sphere, ang public opinion, or the certain beliefs within society. Ang malinformation naman po ay sadyang nananakit po ng tao. It usually attacks reputations through disinformation. So, nakikita na, for example, ang deepfake ay example po ng isang malinformation dahil you are already impersonating a real person and putting words in that person's mouth. So, ito po, we have to distinguish the intent in tackling the area of information disorder. Next slide, please. So I thought I would just summarize what I have to say in ABCD. Ang abakada po ng disinformation. Ang una po ay manipulative actors. They are people with clear groups, institutions with clear intention disrupt democratic process or the information ecosystem. The second is deceptive behaviors, mga tactic po. And I'll go through it given the limited time one by one. Can we have the next slide? So I'll tackle it more systematically. So una po, manipulative actors. So as Jonathan had said earlier, dun sa nakasite po sa kanyang study Architects of Network Disinformation. Ito po ay mga institutions, mga tao, mga groups na nananadyang nagkakalat ng disinformation. I listed here some examples of these manipulative actors, such as yung tinatawag ni or na-label ni Craig Silverman, isang journalist who focuses on disinformation also in the US, na mga black PR agencies. These are boutique PR agencies that really focus on, sometimes they operate during elections to either attack or to attack certain individuals during the election period, or feed disinformation in other forms, like in environment issues, no, health issues, mga ganyan. So sadya silang nagta-target ng audiences. Many of them are not necessarily members or officially recognized public relation firms in the country, but are also ad hoc. And then po yung mga POGO na or community-based fake account operators. No, so ang danger po ng isa pang danger ng POGO ay they have the machinery and the equipment to operate not just online gaming, but they can easily convert to scamming and other forms of harmful activity. And then, of course, apart from them, you also have community-based fake account operators. Ito yung mga grupong na-hire, usually kasama rin sila ng mga black PR na sineset up para mag-attack ng or mag-kalat ng disinformation. Then, of course, you have the hired trolls, yung mga tao nila, hired influencers. Now, this can be individuals who are selling their platform, no, to the highest bidder, no, to be able to share whatever information their financier wants to give out. No, whether it's just for propaganda sake or it's disinformation. And then, of course, yung grassroots supporters, ito po yung hindi ito bayad, ito yung mga na-involve lang sa disinformation dahil masyadong silang, for example, loyal sa isang personality. No? So, kung kahit anong sabihin itong influencer na to, i-echo nila. Sort of like blind loyalty. So, many of them are victims also of disinformation. Unfortunately, kahit na biktima sila rin yung nagpapakalat ng maling impormasyon. Alright, so the commonality here is that they are not operating in and for themselves, but are guns for hire, where the weapon is disinformation and the aim is the manipulation of the public sphere. Sometimes po we can, next slide please, there is some times when it's state-sponsored disinformation. As we can see here, I have two studies from that were published by the Deutsche Welles about Russian disinformation targeting Germany, and published also by the BBC News of Chinese-led state propaganda and disinformation. Next po, letter B, deceptive behavior. I'm narrowing this down to what I think is the most threatening. First is the inauthentic coordinated behavior. Ito po, as Jonathan had also mentioned earlier, pwede po nating hanapan ng paraan para mabawasan to at to go after those who actually finance this. This is the multiple digital actors working together to create false impressions of popularity, consensus, and authenticity. Minsan po sa isang opisina lang, kunyari marami silang hawak na cellphone, marami silang hawak na mga mobile numbers, pero sa isang tao or isang grupo lang nanggagaling, making it appear that something is popular or viral. Clickbait rin, ginagamit ito as a tool whether as a meme, thumbnail, to attract unsuspecting viewers. And astroturfing, it's a creation of or an illusion of grassroots support when it's really just bots and also influence peddlers. As we said earlier, next slide, deepfakes falls under the deceptive behaviors we find in the internet today. Marami po nang na-biktima ng mga celebrity tsaka mga news personalities. Mahanap nyo sa web na kunyari nagbebenta ng mga health products, hindi naman totoo. Si Presidente po ay nabiktima rin ito, yung if you recall the issue on, may sinabi daw siya sa West Philippine Sea na hindi naman totoo. Then harmful content, see, next slide please. So there are several types of harmful content. I just have enumerations of 8 here. False medical information, incitement to violence, no, ito yung hate speech, encourages and glorifies violence, including suicides, defamation, election interference, financial fraud, imposter content. Yung imposter content, yung nag-hack into legitimate websites and creating a clone website. So, akala ng mga viewers, pinupuntahan nila yung, kunyari, pinupuntahan nila yung Inquirer, yung pala ay clone site siya ng mga disinformers. And then, public safety risks also, yung mga fake emergencies, or yung mga fake na humihingi ng tulong dahil sa isang typhoon or whatever, pero wala pa naman sila doon or hindi naman sila talaga apektado. So next slide, some examples of harmful medical content that can be found on the web. Dipo distribution, next slide. Disinformation distribution networks. Like we said, the thing about social media, it operates on algorithms. So, nag-create itong mga algorithm na to. Next slide, please. Nag-create itong mga algorithms na to, ng mga echo chambers. So, lalo ng kung panay disinformation yung laman ng social media mo, then it's likely na yun lang yung nakikita mo at yun rin yung nasa spread mo sa internet. Automated bots also are there to boost algorithm para sila yung nagva-viral at sila yung nag-a-appear sa ating mga social media feeds. And then of course, yung mga paid influencers, because of the number of their subscribers or their viewership, they can easily affect the algorithms in favor of whatever they're posting. And then, of course, yung mga fake accounts, ito yung mga either inauthentic accounts or secondary accounts of mga clone accounts of real people. So some policy, next slide please. I'd like to echo what Jonathan said earlier, but I also have a few of my own here, in my policy analysis and recommendations. So first, there's a need to balancing the need to combat fake news with protecting fundamental rights is a complex challenge that requires extensive evaluation and flexibility in adjustment. So hindi ito black and white na issue. Kailangan po the bottom line is still the protection of our freedom of expression, freedom of the press, especially the right of the people to information. Current laws in the ASEAN, such as the Malaysia's Anti-Fake News Act of 2018 and Singapore's Protection from Online Falsehoods and Manipulation Act, or PORMA, while sounding positive in combating disinformation, is more of an obstruction of civil liberties and media freedom. Kung titignan natin po itong dalawang sample na laws na to, malabo po, very ambiguous po yung definition nila ng disinformation. So kahit ano pwede mo siya ipasok. Kahit na legitimate reporting po ng news, especially on areas of corruption or public complaint of, let's say, services not rendered by public utilities, etc., pwede pong masakop dito. So it's really against freedom of expression. Pero merong silang, well, in terms of PORMA, I will mention a few that provisions that they're kinda okay. But first, emphasis on media and information literacy by involving various stakeholders, including governments, technology companies, civil society organizations, and the academe in developing and implementing strategies to educate the public. Yung current nating MIL courses sa grades 11 and 12, they are only 1/4. So it's not enough considering that it's now as important as reading and writing and arithmetic, no? Yung 3 Rs kasama na dapat po ang media literacy, which means that it's hindi lang po sa grades 11 and 12, dapat po bumaba ito ng grade 1 pa lang ay tinuturuan na natin ng mga bata maging media literate. Penalizing masterminds, no? Especially black PR firms engaged in disinformation. Yung mga influence operators po na sinasabi, there has to be a way to penalize the masterminds rather than yung individual trolls. Kasi wala ho tayong mararating kung maghahabol tayo ng individuals rather than yung nag-hire sa kanila or yung nagbabayad sa kanila. Some solutions in other countries. Next slide, please. Sa Finland, they have implemented a comprehensive media literacy program in schools and the general population, leading to higher levels of public awareness and resilience against disinformation. Sa Taiwan, they have adopted a rapid response mechanism to counter disinformation involving fact-checking organizations, government agencies, and social media platforms. This approach has been effective in addressing false information quickly. At sana ho ito ma-replicate natin dito, kaya nating i-replicate to if there is collaboration among and support with fact-checking organizations, especially now that Meta has removed their partnership with third-party fact-checkers. Yung sa Singapore PORMA law, they also have applied various contexts of quickly addressing and correcting false information. So, meron silang executive rapid response where they publish the correction together with the false information para makita kagad ng public kung ano yung mali at ano yung tamang information. So, ito po yung mga aking masasuggest at this time. Thank you po.
Thank you so much, Ma'am. Rachel Ican. So, dito na tayo kay Attorney Michael T. Chu, UP College of Law, and then after which we will be proceeding to the government agencies. Attorney Michael Chu, you are now recognized via Zoom?
Yes, sir.
Via Zoom. Sige.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Your Honors. I will share a presentation as well. Hopefully, it is visible. And I want to acknowledge also that my presentation draws on the work of Dr. Ong because he has done a lot of work in studying this information in our context and reiterating as well that there are differences among disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation, as Dr. Khan had mentioned. But I want to highlight in disinformation, for example, from a legal perspective, there should be a justification for the regulation or whatever law that may be passed that targets disinformation. And it's not insurmountable. There are ways to do that. I think that the first thing that I would say is that human rights experts in the UN system or the special procedures, for example, will say that we do not punish disinformation per se, but we focus on the agenda and also the intent, which is what distinguishes this information from the others, which the intent to propagate false information for a particular agenda. And I say that because that has to be squared with our constitutional framework on freedom of expression and how expression can be regulated. I want to also reiterate the context that is important here, Your Honors, because while we do take guidance or we compare our approach to the approaches of other states, it is important to recognize that those states may not have as robust free expression environment as we do, or have different histories or experiences. For example, if we look to the laws of Germany restricting hate speech, you will understand why their approach on hate speech is that way, a little bit stricter than most, because of their experiences with World War II and the atrocities that followed, versus the experiences of the United States, for example, which really is inclined to protect free expression in the widest breadth possible. And on that note, a lot of our doctrine and laws in the Philippines hew towards the U.S. approach, not entirely, but closer to that than, let's say, Germany's approach. In the same way that Canada's approach is different from ours because they have specific values, constitutional values that they want to promote, let's say the protection of democratic society, which is something that we share with them, but that's part of their legal tests, actually. Okay. So just to reiterate some of the ways in which this information is propagated online, and again, I defer to the other experts on this, but these are the ways, and I think we see them being conducted, being done in platforms and elsewhere in the internet. Social engineering, for example, will employ methods that that recreate or that truncates or changes the context, or context is missing, and of course that also transforms particular content through the use of technology. Okay, and these are some of the models. Dr. Ong's work generated some of the models, and I'll defer to him regarding that. I also just want to emphasize that that companies should be able to see, social media companies, for example, should be able to see disinformation networks because these accounts are interconnected. See, so often because of analytics and the technology that they use, they will be able to spot patterns in their platforms, and that should be visible to them. And especially when these disinformation networks cross platforms. So for example, in the case of Meta, where you have Facebook and Instagram, they can cross platforms, and therefore it should also be visible to those companies, given that they also use algorithms and artificial intelligence to spot those. Okay, so again, your honors have already stated the effect of this information on our institutions. I will not reiterate that, just to also say that it also has an effect on the population and could be counterproductive to all the other education measures that we have been doing, which means more education than is called for. Okay, so these are some of the strategies that have been offered, and we'll discuss them briefly in a little bit in the context of how other countries approach it. My contribution to the discussion would be to echo that, of course, expression and content are protected under the Constitution, save under exceptions. And this was why I emphasized earlier that disinformation per se need to be carefully reckoned with, because it's such of a breadth that some protected expression or a lot of protected expression might be covered by a law on disinformation. So, but there are ways, again, to deal with that from the legal standpoint, in addition to the policy recommendations. So we have fact-checking, of course, platforms do that, although as discussed by Dr. Khan, Meta had taken a different path here. Media literacy. So some studies, let's say this case study from West African countries, tell us that when students are taught media literacy and critical thinking skills, they are able to better combat this information, because the end user or those who are targeted with this information are able to discern the type of information that they are receiving. And so, again, to the point that was asked in the invitation to talk about education, education is really an important part of it, but really tailored education, and also in the formative stages, because, and also the universities will be very important because critical thinking is also developed at that level, a deeper critical thinking. So, and then some of these also suggested by our experts. Now, I want to turn to the approaches of the countries, our neighbors and those who are elsewhere. Singapore, as mentioned, has a law that focuses on online falsehoods that can harm public interest. And some of the remedies in this law will be correction orders. So I think you scale it. And international law also requires us to be proportionate in our response. So if the response to the type of harm can be remedied by a correction order, you don't need to remove it. A takedown order if it's of a graver nature, and then account restrictions would be imposed on such grave offense. So there are penalties involved there. Vietnam also has a decree on this, and it targets interstate service providers, internet service providers as well, and social media platforms. And one of the remedies is removal of content that they define as illegal. Mexico's government has a fact-checking site. So this is also an important countermeasure used broadly, so that there is a government source that counter-checks whatever information, false information is out there. And Finland, this was mentioned.